The long-missed grandfather, at his own funeral, had prepared a surprise for everyone. However, no one knew that at the age of 79, he had a 6-year-old granddaughter living in his house. The relatives all speculated that perhaps this little girl was the result of an affair the grandfather had with a woman outside the family. But the little girl didn't say a word. She would just hide whenever she saw people. When the funeral ended and everyone left, some of the relatives who were closer to the grandfather prepared to say their final goodbyes. Jack squatted down and looked at Mary. According to tradition, the grandfather's daughter was Jack's mother's younger sister, making her Jack's aunt. Jack invited Mary to the front to lay chrysanthemums on the grandfather's body. But the next second, Mary furrowed her brow and began shaking her head frantically. She ran barefoot to the garden and picked the grandfather's favorite gentian flowers. The gentian was very different from the chrysanthemums, but at that moment, Mary knew that her grandfather would never wake up. Mary grabbed Jack's clothes and began to cry loudly. The final ceremony was completed, and the whole family sat around the table, discussing where Mary should go. One man said he was too busy running a shop, and a woman also stated that she wasn't as free as she appeared. No one was willing to take Mary in. As they kept discussing, someone suggested sending Mary to a welfare institution. Jack had been sitting quietly beside them, listening. He couldn't take it anymore. In anger, Jack smashed his cup onto the coffee table. Now everyone was looking at Jack. He put on his shoes and walked towards Mary. He asked if she wanted to come home with him. Jack, in fact, was a 30-year-old unmarried man. He wanted to raise a child on his own, but it wasn't as simple as Jack had imagined. First, he needed to take Mary to buy clothes, which was a challenge. Jack had no experience, so he can only watch other parents buying clothes for their kids in the store and mimic them. He held up clothes to estimate the size for Mary, buying various clothes and pants. However, that wasn't the hardest part. Jack worked every day, and in addition to his job, he had to take Mary to school and pick her up afterward. Sometimes Jack had to work late into the night, so during the day, he left Mary at an emergency daycare. It wasn't until very late that Jack could pick her up. One day, Jack arrived late, and the teacher was happy to see him, while Jack felt sorry. Jack was tired every day, and his energy was drained. He began making mistakes at work. He couldn't relieve his stress with cigarettes anymore because he now had a child at home. Jack sighed deeply, unsure how long this life would go on. The next day, Jack consulted with a female colleague at work, asking for advice on raising a child. After their conversation, Jack concluded that mothers were really important. His colleague told Jack not to be so pessimistic. After returning home, Jack took out the mother-child manual from the cupboard. He made a decision. The next day, he would take Mary to his mother's house to help care for her, and he would search for clues about Mary's mother at his grandfather's house. A few days later, all the gentian flowers in the yard had withered. Jack stopped and looked at them for a long time before going inside. He began searching the house, fixing the stopped clock, but no matter how long he looked, he couldn't find any information about Mary's mother. Just as Jack was feeling hopeless, he noticed a hidden modem behind a cupboard. It was a device that needed to be connected to a computer. Jack couldn't believe it. How could a 79-year-old man use a computer? On the train back home, Jack suddenly asked Mary if there was a computer at her grandfather's house. Mary's answer was just as Jack had guessed. She said there was also a nanny, and that nanny's name was the same as the one on the mother-child manual, which was also Mary's mother's name. Jack was stunned. Mary began recalling the past, saying that the woman, who was a nanny, didn't care about her at all. Every time Mary mentioned her, she would get very upset. Jack didn't press the matter further.